Welcome to the Austin James Haines podcast. It's time to get free, stay present, be with us here today, and move forward. Here's the question before we get into today. Are you in the middle of a crisis? Or maybe you're facing a major life decision and you find yourself overthinking, trying to find answers, you're feeling anxious. Well, today, my guest, Tim Mahoney, you're going to learn a little bit about here in a moment, is going to share with you over 3 decades of fine-tuning and curating strategies that have won clients multi-million-dollar settlements. So do I have your attention? So welcome. I've been looking forward to this. This is going to be kind of a reunion. It's going to be a mixed bag of great things. But here's what I want to tell you. If you're on the podcast, I'm glad you found this. Go over to the video. You can find that video at Austin J. Haines on YouTube. That's AustinJHaines. And if you're on the video, make sure you go over to the podcast and subscribe. This episode that you're listening to will be available for playback. And I venture to say you're going to want to hear this again. So before I introduce Tim, I want to give you some of the things on his background, because there's a lot of it. And I know you're really going to be glad you know this. So Tim has spent three decades as a trial attorney, and you can imagine what that life is like, being in the thick of these million-dollar settlements. And Tim has helped clients win million-dollar and multi-million-dollar settlements. But I guess, if you think about it, these people are in crisis. There's a crisis that happened that led to that lawsuit. So Tim has spent a lot of time in that space. In the meantime, he's become an event trainer in the Tony Robbins community. And Tim, I know you're at least 2 decades into that, if not more. Is that right?
Yeah, more. Actually, my first event for the Robbins organization was in 1996. And the first time I crewed was in 2000. So that's where you and I ran into each other, was crewing one of those events. So I've been involved in those events in that organization for quite a while. As a trainer, it's only been in the last couple of years that I was honored to be elevated to that position.
Tim, working with you was such a pleasure, and we're going to talk about that. But here's what I want to point out about this. So in the meantime, this high-level position you've carved out this side piece with being in the Robbins organization. But not only are you in the Robbins organization, you are now in rooms that feature his elite clients that you probably can't even mention their names. These are top performers from all over the world, the top movers and shakers that get into these rooms in small groups. Tim is in that room as an event mentor, trainer, and a lead support person, where you're watching these people come in with their crisis, because that's why they're there. So in the middle of all this, you fine-tuned this incredible program that we're going to hear about, has to do with diamonds, and it's time to rise above your crisis. So Tim, I am humbled, grateful that you carved out some time to be with me today.
Well, it's my honor to be here, Austin. I anytime you ask me to do something, the answer is yes. And, thank you for that intro. And, let me just say, anything that I don't really have hobbies. I practice law and I do Tony events, and that's really it. And anytime I get to do anything for the Robbins organization, it's the greatest honor. So whatever they ask me to do, I'm happy to do it. But in terms of the practice of law, as you said, I'm now in my 32nd year. So I'm past 3 decades, and I've done everything in a courtroom. So I started out doing a great deal of criminal defense, and I did all of that work. And then I've done a ton of family law and criminal defense. I did everything from traffic tickets up to capital murder cases. I did the whole gamut. And then I did tons of family law, adoptions, custody disputes, all of that type of stuff. I did business litigation, and then ultimately settled into what I'm doing now. And every one of those things, we're dealing with somebody in a crisis. And that's really when I get the call, right? I get the phone call when the building is burning to the ground. And over the years, kind of started to develop a system as to how to manage that situation, which kind of ultimately has led us here today.
Tim, your record, your track record, and the countless people that you've helped in your business, and I had a chance to work with you firsthand as a crew member, being a part of the Robbins support team. Incredible. I followed your lead there as well, and I really got to know you because that's a dynamic environment there. What I want to do, Tim, I want people to get to know, because a lot of times when you go through somebody's bio, it's like, oh, well, good for you. You got all these accolades, but I'm in crisis over here. But I really want to speak to what happened to you, which you had the accolades, but you had a personal experience as well. And I think that might have lent you your great lesson. Are you willing to go into this and talk about what you needed to get free from to get here?
Sure, absolutely. So it'll be 13 years ago this summer. I was 45 years old. I'm 56 now, almost 57. So I've been practicing law for 20 years and done all the stuff that you were supposed to do. I'd saved money. I'd had a successful career. I was married at the time and had a child, and things were going along fine, but I was not living the life that I wanted to live. I was not the person that I wanted to be. I was a lot heavier than I am now. I was not only still drinking alcohol, but I was over drinking alcohol. And, by a lot of people's standards, I was successful. My law practice was doing well. And by the people around me, they were like, things are going good, but it wasn't where I wanted to be. I wasn't happy. I wasn't in a position that I thought I could be. And then the universe came along and gave me an opportunity for personal growth. And that opportunity for me came in the form of a financial crisis. That was a year after we had the banking crisis. And so the practice of law had changed dramatically. But then we had, and I had a series of events that would take longer than we have here. But we had an assistant that went kind of haywire. My family had split up. My daughter had gone out to Hollywood with her mom, my then wife, because she had an opportunity to pursue an amazing acting career. So she was out doing that. And then the building next to my dad's building collapsed. So literally and figuratively, my financial world collapsed, because the building next to ours collapsed and tore down part of our building. And suddenly, I couldn't do my job. We had regular files back then. We were not allowed to go into the building because the fire department locked it down. The city filed lawsuits against us to tear the building down. Our insurance company said that the building didn't have to be torn down. It could be rebuilt. Meanwhile, my expenses continued to go. I had staff that I had to take care of. They had health insurance premiums. They had 401k contributions. I had my own expenses. My daughter had her expenses. And all of my money that I had saved for 20 years was in retirement accounts. It was all in IRAs and those type of things. And so you had penalties when you liquidated that. You had taxes when you liquidated that. And so I had done everything right. I had done everything I was supposed to do. I had saved. I had done the stuff. I had the right insurance.
So Tim, just so I'm clear, from what I remember, your building collapsed, but there was no insurance coverage. Is that right? For some reason, the insurance wouldn't cover it. Is that right?
It was actually the building next to ours that collapsed and tore down part of ours, which added a little bit of an element to it.
Right.
Insurance denied our business interruption claim because we had a cell phone. That was their justification for that. And we ended up in a fight between our city and the insurance company, because the city said the building had to be torn down and would not let us in it. And the insurance company said, no, it didn't. It could be rebuilt. So I couldn't get at my files, and I couldn't do my job for months. And
wow.
Right. And then when we
So now you're liquidating your funds, right?
Right. So I'm liquidating funds. And then when we did finally get, it took a long time to finally get at our files. And then the whole situation just took all of our time. I mean, it took all of our time. It took all of our attention.
It's a crisis.
We couldn't get anything done. It felt like it felt like quicksand. It felt like every time I moved and tried to do something, all I did was sink and get further and further into the quicksand. And there was part of me that was like, if I just sit here and do nothing, I'll sink slower than if I move and try to do stuff where I feel like I'm sinking faster. And
wow.
It wasn't long, and it was all gone. All the money was gone, and everything was gone. And
so you ripped through all your savings.
Yeah, everything in a matter of months.
Did you go negative at this point?
Oh yeah. You know, with
how far did you go? You want to tell us how far you went?
Oh, down? I was easily. I say this. I was worth $805,000 more the day I graduated college than I was after 20 years of practicing law, because I had $5,000 in my pocket when I graduated college. I had scholarships and stuff, so I didn't have any debt. I worked 3 jobs the entire time I went to college and saved all the money. So I had $5,000 in my pocket when I graduated college. I was easily $800,000 in the hole after 20 years after this event, because with banks, you know, you go right past zero, right? You just keep on going. So
yeah, like they don't recognize zero.
No, they just they'll let you just keep on going. So it was a really interesting time, but it also was the best thing that ever happened to me by far. And
hold on, go back, people, because I think there's people that might be thinking they're in quicksand right now, and we're going to get into this. But why was this the best thing that ever happened to you?
Because ultimately, in order to come out of this situation, I had to become the man I always wanted to be. Because that was what I needed to, in order to survive this, that was what I needed to do. And so this was a great gift, because it forced me to make the choices that I had always wanted to make. It forced me to finally take care of my health in a way that I had wanted to for years. It forced me to stop drinking, which I needed to do. And this summer will be 13 years.
Oh,
yeah. 13 years since I had a drink. It forced me to focus on the things that I needed to focus on. And it's why I got so dedicated to being part of the Robbins organization, and I got dedicated to that as a volunteer. All I ever wanted to be there was a volunteer, because the people of that organization are the ones that help me focus in a way to guide myself out of that situation. You know, I went to an event right after it happened. One of the events that you and I probably saw you there. It was in Chicago, and I was crewing, and I always crewed and was a volunteer. I was there on my own dime and my own time. And I was caught in my story of what was going on. I was showing everybody the photos and look at what's happening to me and woe is me and all this stuff. And my crew members there looked at me, and especially one person in particular, Ralph. Ralph lives down in Florida, and he looked at me and he said, "Look, man, stop whining about what's going on and go fix it. Go fix the problem. Focus on the solution, not the problem." And that shift, I stopped and listened to him and went, he's right. And that I came back with that shift where I was like, I'm done looking at the problem. How do we fix this?
Tim, this is a great time to pause. First of all, I'm going to ring the Liberty Bell for you. We're bringing the Liberty Bell back to the show.
The Liberty Bell. All right. I love it.
So you're liberated, and we want to get to the rest of your story, but I want people to give an opportunity, because what you're going to find out is Tim is launching a coaching business to help people specifically out of crisis, facing a major life decision, and he's going to have a book coming out. But I want to give our listeners the opportunity now, and we'll give you another opportunity. Tim at Mahoney.com. That's M-A-H, like Mahoney, like abbreviation of Massachusetts and honey twice. So Tim at Mahoney.com. Send him an email and he will connect. Tim, is it complimentary to talk to you, like a discovery?
Yeah. If
Okay.
you hire me, then there's something there. But obviously, just for us to talk, that's going to be, complimentary and just a way for us to get to know each other and see whether or not it's the right fit. It's space is limited, right? I have my law practice, but I love getting to do this. And when I went back, you forced me to really go back and take a look at this when we did the book that we did together, Flashpoint, the turnaround stories.
Yep.
As I was doing that with you, and you called me up and said, look, you have to do this. I'm like, how do I have time to do this? And you told me, you said, look, you're going to do it. I realized that I had in fact created a system for getting yourself through and even thriving from a crisis. And I had used it on my clients kind of unconsciously. And then I had applied it to myself. And when I went back and looked at it with you and with the person that helped us with the book, I realized, okay, there is actually a pattern to this. There is actually, and then afterwards I implemented that with my clients. So, like in the past.
Tim, before you get into it, I just want
Yeah.
to honor, we do have some live people that are listening,
Oh,
and
great.
we always want to give
Great.
an opportunity for them as well. We have TJ is on here.
Yeah,
And,
you got to cut me off and get me to shut
That's
up.
okay. That's okay. We're good. I need time to help me win mine. I guess he's talking about her win, and then I'm excited to hear what Tim has had going on. Then we have Janie saying, "Wow," and then I like this. Success is measured by fulfillment. People on the outside see success, but they don't see what's truly going on. And I think when you were talking about earlier on how you, prior to your incident, you looked like a success on the outside, but then the incident happened with the building falling down, the building next to you falling down, ripping part of your building, shutting you down. You have no choice. You're going through your reserves. You sailed past your zero, like you mentioned. And I think that's what TJ's talking about. And then, yeah, this name looks familiar, but
yeah, that's one of my cousins from Boston, Chrissy.
Okay.
Great to see you, Chrissy. I do a Facebook Live most mornings, and Chrissy has followed me for a long time, and she's a wonderful, wonderful person who has also, managed herself through a lot of this, using a lot of these same techniques to get herself through crisis. And she's a true inspiration. Love her to death.
I'm glad, Chrissy, I'm glad you joined today. And Tim, we definitely want to get a couple of these insights and give people the ability to connect with you after. And yeah, and we have Janie's on here saying, kudos, Tim. Tim, you really are an inspiration, man. You really are. Like you every day I see you're very consistent. And what I mean is in your disposition, your mood, you want to serve, you want to help others. And it comes across in your body language. And I know you've conditioned this, and it comes across in the way you speak. It comes across in the way people respond to you. And Mandy's on here too. Hey, Tim, good to see you again. So,
oh yeah, Mandy, I remember. Yeah, great to see you too. Great to see you too. Well,
yeah.
Thank you, Austin. Look, at the end of all my stuff, thank you, TJ. That's super amazing. At the end of all my stuff, I always say, we're all in this together. Let's take care of each other. And that was really an idea that I got from my grandparents, who were a very big part of my life. And I really believe that. I'm like, look, we are all in this together, and we all have different skills and tools and abilities, and we can all help each other to grow, help each other to be better. Competition comes from the idea of conspire, that we're going to work together to make each other better. And one of the steps that I talk about as you're going through a crisis is to not do it alone. Don't go through the crisis alone. Get the people around you, but get the people around you who are going to help you, not the people around you who are going to continue to just talk about your problem. That's not going to help. And a lot of times, the people closest to us, that's what they're going to do. Family members have a tendency to fall into that category, where all they want to do is continue to talk to us about the problem or tell us about the problem. That doesn't help. You need the people that are going to guide you out of it, and they will have skills and tools and distinctions. But a lot of it, why I believe in coaching so much is because you can't see your own swing. And that's the value of coaching, is to have somebody who really cares, who has some skills and tools, but who will evaluate, and you give permission to tell you, look, here's what you're doing that's working, but here's what you're doing that's not working. Ralph, when I was standing next to him at that event, coming up on 13 years ago, he had the skills and tools and the permission from me, because he was one of my contemporaries, like with you at the event, to look at me and tell me, stop whining about what you got going on and go figure it out. You've got the skills and tools to figure it out. Go figure it out. That
Tim,
was
I want to definitely get to this. I definitely want to point to people who are on the video. This will be uploaded to our podcast platform. You can hear this again if you missed it. So definitely, if you go over to any of the podcast platforms and you search my name, Austin James Haines, you'll find the podcast. Subscribe. This episode is going to be up in the next 24 to 48 hours. And Tim, I definitely want to get some of your insights on what you do to turn this around. There's so much here, but I was thinking, I think, and this might speak to what you're going to talk about, but the tendency to wait, like you're complaining and you're waiting, right? You're waiting for the city. Like in your case, you're waiting for the city to talk to the insurance company, and you can get caught in this waiting game because what happened, like, God, a building falls down, that's going to get your attention, and you can be caught like staring at the building, right? Instead of going and like, what do I got to do? So are you willing to give us a couple tidbits here, because you have the whole program called Diamonds? I want you to speak to that.
Yeah.
And if you could give a couple tips to that person who's right now, maybe they got the deer in the headlights metaphorically because of what happened.
Right. I think I can do this in a minute and 30 seconds. Is that all right? Yeah. Well, maybe. Let's see what I can do.
Wow. Okay.
So the idea, it's a 7-step program, 7 things to focus on. And the idea of diamond is, a diamond is a lump of coal that gets put under enough pressure, it becomes something that's one of the most valuable things and one of the toughest thing on the planet. But it's only because it goes through that pressure that it becomes that. So that's the metaphor for ourselves, that when we're going through this crisis, we're becoming our own diamond. And diamond, DIAMOND, stands for the 7 things that we focus on as we go through that. And if it's okay, I'll just touch on them briefly. We won't go into too much stuff. So the D stands for denial. Stop ignoring the problem. A lot of people will do that. When a problem happens, it's outside of our sphere of influence, so we'll ignore it. We'll act like it's not there. And my wife, I got remarried during the shutdown. I'm incredibly lucky to get married to the amazing person that I'm married to. And she has a phrase: stop ignoring the elephant in the corner of the room, juggling and eating peanuts. And that's what we all do. We all see it, but we ignore it. We don't look. We're like, well, we're not going to deal with that. We're just going to leave it there. So D is for denial. Stop denying the problem. I is interpretation. Look at the problem and face it, but don't make it more than it is. This happens a lot with like debt, like credit card debt, where we have this ethereal idea that we know that there's this massive amount of credit card debt, but we put the statements, we don't have written statements anymore, but we put them in a box and put them under the bed and don't, you've got to stop denying and face the problem, but don't make it more than it is, because whatever that problem is, there's somebody else in the world that would look at that and go, God, I wish that was my problem, because here's my problem that's this much worse. And that was one of the things that the Robbins community always showed me. Like one of the things I go back to is I got the honor of meeting a couple of Holocaust survivors a few years ago. That was on my bucket list. And I went to the Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles, and I got to meet 2. And I mean, you do that, and whatever you have, and you're like, okay, well, whatever I'm dealing with is a walk in the park compared to what those people incredibly dealt with. So don't deny it. Face it, but then keep it in perspective. So like one of the things I would say to myself on mine is, it's money. Okay, this is a financial issue. That's it. Nobody's dying. My child's health is great. Everybody in my family's health is great. It's money. I still have my license to practice law. So I will figure it out. The A is for accept. Accept that problems are a gift. Problems are sent to make us stronger. They're sent to make us more of who we are. And wherever you are spiritually in the world or of faith, or I have no conversation for you there other than to say, when the universe sends us this problem, understand, how can I turn this around and make it a gift? And some of the greatest things in our life come from our biggest problems. Most of our growth comes from our biggest problems. And we can look around to things like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, Amber Alerts, America's Most Wanted. Those all came out of terrible, terrible crisis situations. Those people took that incredible problem and turned it into something that was a gift. The M is momentum. You have to start to get momentum in the positive direction. And the best part to do that is mindset. And there's some things that we talk about and specific things that we work on in order to get you there. But you got to get out of that negative momentum and start to get into the positive momentum. The O in the diamond is others. You need help. You got to go find people who can help you. And that can be coaching, that can be, and a lot of times people don't think that there's an opportunity there. Let me tell you, there are lots and lots of people that want to help you when you're in a bad situation. Now you got to pick the right ones. You got to pick the people who can really help and aren't going to just want to wallow in your problem. But there's lots of mentors out there that if you just raise your hand and say, look, I have this going on, would be more than willing to help it out. The N in the diamond is NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Now that's a term that you know, but we're talking about changing our mindset. And for me, this starts with the morning routine. And we set up a whole morning routine that way you start programming your mind to think about what's good, what can I look for, where's the opportunity as opposed to what's going wrong. And then the D is diet, exercise, taking care of yourself. You've got to start with your own physical health. A lot of times that gets left to the wayside, and we need to take that and move it first. You got to take care of your own health. Otherwise, the crisis is going to destroy your health.
Tim,
and we want to not do that.
Tim, real quick again, go through them real quick. D, real quick.
All right. So D, denial, don't deny the problem. I, interpretation, your problem is somebody else's joy because everybody else has got it worse. Accept the problem as a gift. And also an interpretation, don't make it worse than it is. M is momentum. We got to get your momentum back in the positive direction. There's specific ways to do that. O is others. Go find other people who can help you. N is NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. That's morning routine. Start setting up your morning routine. And D is diet. We got to take care of your personal health.
There you go. And if Tim's email is at the bottom, again, tim@mahoneymahoney.com. Make sure you connect and send an email. And we're going to get into a little closing sequence here. But I did ask Tim to marinate on what is a quote or a poem. He could, when I said poem, he's like, I don't got a poem, but I know he's got a quote. I know he's got a quote that is probably bubbling up now.
Every problem is a gift. Every
problem is a gift.
Every problem is a gift. You know, as we say, what if life was happening for us instead of to us? And what can I learn from this? Every problem is a gift.
Every problem is a gift. And I would say if you are in the quicksand, like Tim talked about, the most difficult, simplest, most difficult, most effective thing to do would be to book a call with Tim. It's hard to reach out for help. I get it. You get caught in your head. But when you have that conversation and you really expressing what's going on, you might be surprised at that could be the momentum that you're searching for.
Right.
So again, let me put that email up at the bottom, and I just want to make sure people connect with you. If you're on the podcast, go over to the video. Tim, are you in your office right now?
I am.
Your new office, not the one that fell down, right?
Yeah. This is. I did buy an old building and revamp it. It turned out super cool, but I did make sure that both buildings on either side of me were very sound before I bought this building after the last experience that I had. So,
and maybe you got a new insurance company.
Yeah. We won't mention the name of the other one that
no, but it
didn't serve us so well.
Didn't serve, yeah. So I'm going to do it. I'm excited. This has been just such a great time. I wish we could talk for another hour, but we could definitely have you back on. once your book gets closer. I know you're going to, when are you planning to launch that book, Tim? Like next month, right?
I was hoping actually to get it done last year, and then we had some bumps in the road that I didn't get that done. So I hopefully this year it gets done and I get to launch it. I have launched the coaching system, which, I wasn't sure that I had the time to do that. But I enjoy it so much, and there's such good stuff here that I want to be able to at least have some opportunity to share that. And I can't tell you how happy I am to be on and to see you again and work with you again. You bring so much value to everybody that comes in contact with you in every way, from those of us that get to be on your podcast and share with you, to the information that you share. I can't say enough, and I'm honored to get to be asked. And like I said, anytime you ask me to do something, the answer is always yes. So thank you again for asking.
Yeah, this is a continuation. Actually, I want to make everybody aware. This is an interesting. I have a gentleman that's going to be up in a couple of weeks. I'm going to share this with everybody. Michael John Bobick, this is interesting. He came up with this quote: "All progress happens outside of your comfort zone," and it went viral. And I'll tell the story later, but he's going to be up in a couple of weeks. He's a poet, musician. He's got a self-help workbook I'm going to be going over, so we'll have that coming up in the next coming weeks. And I want to let everybody know that my journey has shifted. I'm writing a poetry book, and I'm doing this live event called Poetry in Presence. I had no idea that this gift was in me. And it was only through doing this work with people like Tim, getting around people that are doing good in the world, that this gift came out. So I'm going to be touring, and that's going to be coming up. But here's a little animation on the book. Oops, there we go. And I just put the QR code up to connect to the website. Tim, this has been a great time together. Any final words before we say goodbye? And
just thank you. Just thank you to have me on here. And for those of you, if you see this and you are in the middle of a crisis, there is a way out. Ask for help. There's a saying in one of the arenas that help people to get away from alcohol, that somebody falls into a hole and nobody knows what to do, and somebody's coming along and they jump in, and the first guy says, "Well, how are you going to help me? Now we're both in the hole." And the second guy goes, "Yeah, but I know the way out." And if you're in a crisis, find somebody who's been in a crisis like yours or worse, and follow them, follow their lead, and they will help get you out. We're all in this together, so let's help each other.
And I want to close with this. Tim, you are a successful trial attorney for 3 decades. You were in the Tony Robbins community, and you had your own personal crisis where you lost everything and you went into negative. This is the guy to talk to. So everyone, thanks for being here. If you're on the video, go to the podcast. On the podcast, go to the video. And we'll see you next time on the Austin James Haines podcast. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.